Hello everyone, it's Deb Floros for Jesse James Beads. I'm opening the Magical Mystery Bead Box for March 2025. It's called Conservatory, and I love to just pull out all of the pieces and parts and then pick just a few things I want to make something fabulous with. So I'm in love with the Terracotta Dream strand, the Begonia Garden mix, and the in the Conservatory metal pieces. So I'm going to dump all of that out. I'm not going to guarantee I won't use something else from the box, but I'm very, very in love with these fun metal pieces. They look like they're brass, and I'm going to show you how to incorporate something like this into a fun necklace piece. And we're going to do like a collar style. I'm going to use 19 strand beading wire, and I'm going to use some 24 gauge wire to make these little components into some focal pieces that we'll use for our collar necklace. Now, these little rectangular crystal beads are so perfect to put into those long rectangular metal pieces. So I'm grabbing all of those from the mix, and I've got about 8 inches of 24 gauge wire. I'm going to put it onto that little scallop piece. It almost looks like a scallop or a butterfly. And I'm going to wrap a few wraps around the wire, and then I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to put it up through the bottom hole on that metal piece. And the metal piece is just going to sit on your wraps. Then I'm going to add one bead. You don't want to go all the way up through the piece. You want to have the wire open, and I'm going to add some 11-0 seed beads here. They're a pretty metallic. They go beautiful with this. I'm going to use one of the rectangular beads, 3 seed beads, and another rectangular bead. And I'm going to pull my wire back down very carefully and then push it back through that second hole in the metal piece. You may have to hold on to your beads while you do that, and you want to do it slowly. So I'm going to then do a wire wrap loop at the top of the metal piece. So the same number of wraps that I did at the bottom. And if your loop is not going in the right direction, don't fret. We can always fix those once we're done. So now I've got one side. I'm going to use another 8 inches or so of wire, and I'm going to go through the top hole on that scallop piece on the other side. And I'm just going to bend the wire across like a crisscross, and then I'm going to take my pliers and hold on to that little loop. You want that piece to be able to move. And if you use some bent chain nose, you can see what you're doing. Just get a few wraps around the wire, and then you're going to cut off the excess that you used to wrap. Then put that wire up through the first hole on that rectangular piece. Grab one of your rectangular beads, 3 seed beads, another rectangular piece, and then you're going to pull that wire down ever so carefully. And sometimes it may take a little bit of an effort to get that wire up through the hole. So hold on to everything and then pull everything down. And then you'll do another wire wrap loop up top. And that's going to be one of our focal pieces. Isn't that fun? So I'm doing another wire wrap loop and getting that all situated and making sure that I've got everything in line so that that will nicely hang onto my beading wire. We're just going to string that right onto our beading wire. So I'm creating 2 of these. You've got 4 of those rectangular pieces, and you've got some scallops as well. So you'll have those 2 pieces to work with. And then I thought those teardrop pieces would look so pretty hanging at the bottom of those fun focal pieces that we just created. So I've got a very long head pin, and I'm just creating a loop opening that up, and then I'm going to put that through the very bottom hole of that little scalloped piece. You've got 3 holes there. You could add additional beads if you wanted. I'm just going to add this teardrop, and then I'm going to take my bent chain nose, hold on to that loop, and then do a wire wrap at the top of that teardrop. Cut off my excess wire, and wow, this is going to be so fun. I love that. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. So now we've got 2 really cool dramatic pieces that we're just going to string directly onto our beading wire. Now, forewarning, I did a few design changes as I went along here, and that's kind of how I like to work with the Magical Mystery Bead Box. I'm taking a couple of those other teardrops and I'm just wire wrapping them onto head pins. We'll use those later. And then that beautiful kind of cognac shaded big crystal bead is going to be the center of this necklace. And I just kind of like to take all of the pieces and parts and lay them out and start to put them together. And ooh, that's a really cool way to do this. You really can't go wrong with how you string this up. So this is a simple stringing project, but we're doing some fun additions with those wire components that we put together. And when you're working with those beaded beads, you'll want to add some of the fun metal components. I use the sheriff stars on either side of it so that you, if you're using seed beads throughout the project, which I did, your seed beads won't slip through your bead and then your design is a little bit off. So I did use 2 seed beads between every bead. Because I feel like that adds a nice little bit of dimension, a little bit of separation, and those metallic seed beads I used match perfectly back to all of these beads and add a nice metallic effect. So I started off this design with a couple of those melon beads around that big crystal. And I took those metal components, I strung on one side, then a couple of seed beads, then a bead cap, and then one of the brown magnesite beads, and then another bead cap, another couple of seed beads, and then the other half of that metal component. And that did not change with the design change. So most everything that I'm doing here stayed the same. And I do make one change at the center of the necklace before I finished it. So you'll see me do that. Everything else pretty much remained the same. And I brought in some of those sage colored beads. I brought in some of those really cool, almost moon dust white and brown beads. And then I did string on those little teardrops a little ways up on the necklace. Now I'm bringing in some bead caps around the sage crystals and just adding just the right amount of metal and the right color combos, a little bit of everything here to really enhance that conservatory vibe. And there are some really cool barrel beads that you can put some metal around as well. And then as you're starting to get towards the back of the necklace, you can use some of your smaller beads from the mix. Now you could even make this necklace longer if you so desire, because maybe it's a little bit too short for you, but it's about a 17-inch necklace. Now here's where I'm going to go and test how the necklace looks. So I'm going to get all the slack out of it, put on my bead stoppers, and then I'm going to hang it onto my dress form and see how this lays. Now, I don't like those white beads there. They're a little bit too much. There's too much length there. So I'm bringing in some metal. I'm going to stack some of the fun little almost flower-shaped bead caps and a fun daisy spacer at the very end, and that's just going to create a frame around my focal bead. Then I'm stringing everything back on the way that it was. I absolutely love this. I'm just going to do a quality check to make sure everything is there. I didn't miss a bead. I didn't put something in the wrong place. And then I'm going to create my closure. I'm going to use a large lobster claw, and I'm going to use one of the bead frames. Now, there are these metal beads that look like rings, but they are actually a bead. They have holes in them. I'm going to put on a crimp tube and then a seed bead. Then I'm going to go through one half of my bead frame, and then another seed bead. And then I'm going to go back down through the hole on the bead frame, skipping that seed bead. Then I'm going to go back down the seed bead after the bead frame and down the crimp tube. And then I'm going to crimp it. So it's just using that bead frame as a ring that we can use for the other half of our closure. So our large lobster claw will link onto that. See, it's just a little fun little way that you can use a bead cap as a ring. So I'm crimping that on, making sure that my wire isn't crossed and getting that crimp nice and tight, and then cutting off my excess wire. Now I'm pulling down my necklace, getting all of the slack out of it and keeping it nice and fluid as I put on seed beads on the other end and create a loop to have my lobster claw attached. And just being very careful of those seed beads and crimping on that large lobster and trimming off my excess. I love how that looks. That's a super fun ending to this necklace. Now let's just use those fun little metal components out of the In the Conservatory pack and make a simple pair of earrings. And let's use some really beautiful kind of crystally white beads with some really kind of some yellow in them. They're super fun. These are simple earrings for our beautiful, fantastic, wild and crazy collar necklace. I had a blast making this. I think it came out great. Check out the March Magical Mystery Bead Box. You won't regret it. You can get it at jessiejamesbeads.com. Thank you so much for watching.